Aston Martin cuts jobs by 20% as US tariffs hit. That's February the 25th, and it's from Reuters. Now, I think they've gone completely the wrong way there, because I think that investing in electric vehicle technology can save Aston Martin, and I think it can save the James Bond franchise too. The company plans to save £40 million by 2026 through job cuts. Aston Martin expects financial improvements in 2026, trims capital spending to £1.7 billion by delaying EV investment. Now, I think EVs could save Aston Martin. What? Stick with me. They've trimmed capital spending to £1.7 billion by delaying EV investment. Share price rises after 9 sessions of decline. British luxury car maker Aston Martin, AML, will cut its workforce by up to 20%, it said on Wednesday, as it strives to recover from the impact of US import tariffs and weak demand in China. Aston Martin said the job cuts from a total workforce of around 3,000 should deliver annualised savings of around £40 million. It did not specify when the job cuts would be implemented, but said most of the savings would be this year. The cuts include a 5% reduction, which was announced last year. It also trimmed its 5-year capital spending plan to £1.7 billion from £2 billion by delaying investment in electric vehicle technology. In early trade, Aston Martin shares rose by nearly 5% after declines for 9 successive sessions. Now, I think they've gone completely the wrong way there, because I think that investing in electric vehicle technology can save Aston Martin, and I think it can save the James Bond franchise too. I know what you're thinking, Baz, what you're talking about. You're a big EV hater. But no, let me tell you the reasoning behind my thought process. In 1964, I was born in 1958. In 1964, I was 6, and my mum and dad wanted to move to St Anne's from Manchester. I was born in Swinton. My mum and dad wanted to buy a guest house in St Anne's. My dad had been offered a job working in Preston. He didn't want to live in Preston because it's not as nice as St Anne's. So they wanted to buy a guest house in St Anne's. My mum would run the guest house and my dad would work in Preston as a foreman engineer at Thomas Dryden's in Preston. My uncle, who was in St Anne's at the time, took me to see James Bond. I was my uncle's favourite. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I was his favourite, always was, right up until the time he died not too long ago. And he used to take me to things he liked, and he took me to see James Bond. And I came out of the cinema thinking, cars, wow, that Aston Martin. I used to collect corgi toys, and I can remember another particular incident where my poor dad had to drive all the way around Manchester to all the toy shops in Manchester to get the Saints Volvo P1800S, which obviously I wanted, otherwise I'd have scraped the house down. We eventually got to this little toy shop at Peel Green, and they'd got one left. I'd got a collection of corgi toys. So the next day I wrote a postcard to Corgi asking them if they would make the James Bond car. And I actually got a letter back off them, which I had it for years and years and years, along with my letter from George Best. They said they were like thinking of making it. And they also sent me a Corgi badge for writing to them. And a few months later, I'm not saying they weren't already going to make it, they probably were. They came out with a Aston Martin. I think this Aston Martin was a glimpse into the future. I really do. The James Bond franchise saved Aston Martin then. Now I think Aston Martin can save the James Bond franchise. How are they going to do that, Baz? The last film. I've seen every James Bond film multiple times. You Only Live Twice, my favourite film. I've seen it, oh God, I mean, I've just lost count. I'd watch it again this afternoon. But the last film I've only seen once. I've not even watched it twice. You know, you only live twice, and YOLO, you only live once. I've only watched the last film once because I thought it was absolute shite. I thought it was crap. I thought it was an embarrassment. Whoever wrote that was an idiot and went right against everything James Bond is. They may as well call it James Bond Gives Up. Have you ever seen him give up? The thing with James Bond is he escapes in the nick of time. He never gives up, even though in the face of overwhelming odds, he comes through. So I think what we should do, we should rewrite the end. We should get Daniel Craig out of retirement. He comes out, the place hasn't blown up. He runs to his EV, gets in his EV, Aston Martin, which has been rebuilt. You know, obviously this had a lovely engine and it sounded fantastic. But for the purposes of this film, they've taken it to the guy with the sideys and he's converted it into an EV. And Moggy there, he's made one more conversion, which we don't know about, right till the last second. James Bond's in his EV, the timer stopped, the building's not going to blow up, he needs to destroy that bacteria. Gets in his EV, coming up the road, 100, 150 miles an hour, and he's heading right towards the building. Then at the last second, James Bond, Moggy, he's converted it to an EV, but the passenger ejector seat is put on the driver's side. EV hits the big building that needs to be blown up, goes into thermal runaway. James Bond still alive. Aston Martin saves the James Bond franchise, and also, because of the publicity in the film, Aston Martin re-employ all the people that they were going to sack, and everyone lives happily ever after. Cubby, you're welcome. Thanks for many, many years of enjoyment, except this last film, which was shit. How can you kill James Bond off? You crushed everybody like me's spirit. I have never felt so depressed as when James Bond gave up.
To the top first, I'm telling you. And see if you're fighting against them, the white flag would come up right away. I'm not kidding you. Honest.
Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.